Okay, we've got audio there. Okay, let's see. We've got thermal. Yeah, that's gonna work. Okay. Let me try the other Brio. That Brio. Oh, that looks a little bit better. Okay. So teleprompter screen, we've got normal view. Okay. All right. Okay, good. Good. We're on it. This happens to be a t-shirt from a YouTube channel I follow. And it has nothing to do with ham radio. It's all about that stupid thing. It's all about paramotoring, which is kind of fun. It's kind of a type of flying. Okay. Let's see. So the teleprompter actually is the overhead, so we could put something here if we needed to. All right, normal view. I'm Dave Casler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, welcoming you to the Thursday evening live stream. It is 6:48 here in Colorado, USA, on the 1st of March. UTC, it's already the 2nd of March. For certain political systems, May 1st is an important day, May Day. I was taught as a youth, they actually had a maypole at our elementary school, and we all had to dance around the maypole and stuff like that. And I survived it. So, but where I grew up in Southern California, the big holiday was the 5th of May, Cinco de Mayo. That is a Mexican holiday, and most of the Hispanics in the Los Angeles area, by the way, whites are in the minority in the city of Los Angeles. The Hispanics are in the majority. And that's a city with like 2.5, 3 million people, something like that. There's a lot of suburbs around there. And I mean, that still holds true. So Cinco de Mayo is 5th of May, is a big deal down there. And I imagine we'll be here too. There's a lot of Hispanic population around here too, especially up in Olathe. I'm about 7 miles south of Kelowna, about 20 miles south of Montrose, and about 10 miles north of Montrose is Olathe. And they have a really good Mexican restaurant there. It's kind of nice when the music is Mexican, the people serving you are Mexican, and the food is really good Mexican food. Now, I know they modify it a bit for the non-Hispanic people. When I was first married to my first wife, she was Chinese. And every restaurant that we went to had 2 menus. One for the Anglos and one for the Chinese. And they were different. And my wife always asked for the Chinese menu and ordered from it. So I never knew what I was going to get. I mean, I sort of drew the line at sea cucumbers. Sea cucumbers are big giant slugs from the ocean. They were, I just couldn't do them. Although I have developed quite a taste for hot and sour soup. So anyway, there we are. Welcome to the live stream. I think I've got the thing up. I got upstairs a little bit late today, and I have this thing going. Like to keep it going. And as you can probably tell, I've been losing a little weight. I'm down over 50 pounds, about 55 pounds. I think I need to lose that much again because most of my weight now is in my belly. And I've gone from wearing size 44 pants to wearing size 38. So lost a little bit of girth there. At some point in the past, longer ago than I can remember, I guess, I decided, all these old pants, I was never going to wear them again, so I gave them away. And now I need them, so I'm having to buy new stuff. Okay, so here is from Leo. Oh, for those of you who are new, who are tuning in, what we do is just chat with each other. If you have a question, I will try to answer it, okay? I've got a whiteboard here, and we can draw things out and see if we can get an answer. And if I don't know the answer, maybe somebody who is on tonight knows the answer. According to this, we have close to 50 online viewers. That's great. I really appreciate it. I've been thinking very hard about what to do for Dayton. My wife is waiting for a brace. So one of these wrap-on things, a strap-on, and kind of provide a lot of support to the back and so on. The bottom of her back is just. I looked at her MRI report, and then I looked at my MRI report, and I don't feel so bad for myself anymore. She's got it rough. If the brace works out, maybe she'll go with me to Dayton. I'm thinking I'll just go by myself. Otherwise, I'll just drive the RV. I mean, I did that once a couple years ago when I went out to Carson City, Nevada. They have one of the, I think, 2 flight schools in the United States that provides a sport pilot license. That's my license level, sport pilot. I'm not current anymore, so I've gone beyond the 2 years. I don't have an airplane to get a check ride in, and I've got to do 3 full stop takeoffs and landings every 90 days to stay current. And I don't have an airplane to do that in, so, oh well, one of those things. So enjoying ham radio. I've got an absolutely excellent assistant, and he is working very hard. He's a very hard worker. He has taken what we do with the comments to the videos. He selects comments that he thinks are pretty good questions, and we do a short. That's the one that's vertically polarized in YouTube. The regular ones are horizontally polarized. This is called landscape view, what you're looking at right now. The others are called portrait view. Of course, your screen is in landscape view, so you only get a little bit of the middle of the screen attached. So let's see. Leo says, checking in from Albany, Oregon, 61.4 degrees, 60% humidity, and 29.9 millibars. We've got our pressure is 29.85. It says just a tiny titch high. We were supposed to have a high pressure moving in. It's 57 degrees outside and 76 inside, but I just turned on the split unit because this room's been kind of empty and had the sun on it all day. Okay. And according to Hemclock, Bill Myers, KE0OG, good evening, Dave and all Augies. Leo, I would be making progress on my antennas, but I ran into a delay in parts for the Carter AFB for my CJ5 that's taking precedence. Air Force Base? CJ5 is a Jeep. I have a Jeep Wrangler. Took it into town today, got it washed and gassed up. Neil Marsh, good evening. W7NRM, Mount St. Helens country. That is just, it's something you've got to see with your own eyes. No photograph does it justice. To understand the enormous amount of material that was blown out of that thing was just astounding. And they're still studying that Tongan explosion that actually reached the stratosphere. And they're saying the shock wave, which goes up and out. Now remember, the ionosphere is part of the atmosphere. There's not very much there. In fact, so little there that a number of spacecraft are in the upper reaches of the atmosphere there. If you have a little atmosphere like the space station, every so often they've got to reboost it back up to orbit. You know, they'll do a little burn and get it back up into orbit. That's true of all those LEO satellites. The LEO satellites eventually will encounter enough atmospheric drag to cause it to finally hit the tipping point, and it'll head back to Earth. Anyway, the Tongan volcano actually apparently affected some of these satellites. That's how far the shockwave got. So, amazing. Mark French says, hello, Bill Myers, KE0OG. I think that we are missing the sound. That's interesting. It shows sound here. I'm not seeing any indication that I don't have sound. Oh, okay. These came in while I was checking the other cameras. There's a third camera on here, which is behind the whatchamacallit, teleprompter. The teleprompter there. Okay. Bill, I was about to ask the same question. Looks like Dave has it up now. There it is. Okay, yep, oops. Howdy, Dave, from KG5TEL in El Paso, Texas. Hunter Floyd, looking for my first HF radio. Well, I would refer you, but my website's not working again. I would refer you, just jot this down for future reference, dcasler.com, DCASLER.com/reference. And that will take you to a list of everything you need for a general class station, your first general class station. In there for the rig, I have the ICOM IC7300. Now there's some new Yaesu radios out that like the FT740, 710, something like that. It's a very nice looking radio. I have not made the switch to that. The IC7300 is still selling like hotcakes, and it's a great radio. I just did a video on all the features in the radio that help you with Morse code, and there are a lot. It's a half-hour video. I made it once trying to ad-lib it and then gave that up. So I got the manual out, the full manual, and made pages on the open office equivalent of PowerPoint, Liber Writer, whatever it is. And what I did was we talk about what's in the manual, and then I demonstrate it. talk about what's in the manual, and then demonstrate it. And of course, the thing about getting the reference rig is that when I do online explanations of HF, I will be using the reference station, because I took my Yaesu FTDX 3000 out of the station to put this in. That was a bit of a step down, not much of a step down, because I can still do anything I want to with this radio, but I wanted to have the same radio that I was recommending to others. Now, again, the caveat, I have been yeah, I'm sure it'll come back to me. Okay, so that is, he was looking for his KE0OG. John Ward, hello there from W3OJ from Laurel, Maryland. Kurt, W9KEC, good evening, Mr. Dave. Doug Dry, hello, Dave and all loggies from Doug KD4NC in Kennesaw, Georgia. 74 degrees and beautiful weather here. Boy, sounds like it. We were watching on the news the floods and the tornado damage and stuff like that. I read somewhere where, as a result of climate change, Tornado Alley is moving. The tornadoes aren't occurring in quite the same places as before. Why? Who knows? And they probably won't find out in this administration, because they've let a lot of people go, the National Weather Service. So they forget, I think, sometimes that people's lives depend on those forecasts. Let's see. Bought my first HF radio, a new to me ICOM 756. That is a classic radio. That was at one point their top of the line radio. So you've got a tiger by the tail there. Okay. W3OJ from Laurel, Maryland. Good evening, Mr. Dave. Yeah, beautiful. 756, waiting for it to ship. Check it out very thoroughly. I trust you're getting the manual with it. If not, you can download the manual from the ICOM website, I think. Okay, Ralph Leland, hi Dave and everyone. K4TA in Fork Union, Virginia. Neil Marsh, W7NRM, good going, Dave. D. Heller 777, how are you losing the weight? Very simple. It's senior moment. It's in the refrigerator. It's the Nutwagovy, the kind of stuff you shoot into your stomach, actually shoot under the skin there. And it will come to me, it really will, at some point. I've been having more senior moments than I like, and that worries me a little bit. Okay, but that's what I'm doing for the weight loss. I am diabetic, and so it's a legitimate medication. I'm on enough diabetic medications that my morning fasting sugar readings are actually normal now. They're under 100. I think I had 88 this morning or something like that. They're under 100, and it's considered normal. Another nice thing is, in walking around and doing things, I'm not always carrying a 50-pound pack on my tummy, since most of the weight is in the upper body, and that was causing some of the back issues. So now I can stand for a fair amount of time without having back issues. So that's good. Unfortunately, my wife, who's also been losing quite a bit of weight, is having terrible back issues. Her MR magnetic resonance imaging was scary to read. I thought mine was bad. Woo. Anyhow, they're going to put a back brace on her. It's one of these things you see some workers and some occupations strap around their lower back and belly and tighten that up, and hopefully that'll help because her lower spine is pretty unstable. So it hurts her a lot. She's kind of depressed because of it. So, oh well. Okay. Ozempic. It's Ozempic is how I'm losing weight. And I really need to lose another 50 pounds. Okay. N3WER. The thing about Ozempic, it causes your entire digestive tract to slow down. So you literally can't eat as much as you ate before. I mean, this is strange for me. I used to gobble, gobble, gobble all the time. And now I've got this little glass thing of M&Ms here, and take 1 or 2 a day. And sometimes skip meals entirely. The only thing I can have for breakfast anymore is a glass of milk, which, by the way, is what's in here. See my nice little quartzsite Arizona coffee cup. Okay. And John, congratulations to you. 120 pounds. Wow. Okay. N3WER. Good to see you. Very good. Chuck Schreiber from the hill country of South Texas. Partly cloudy and 79. John Ward, question for you, Dave. What can you do when you're in rehab and you're trying to enjoy the hobby? Well, if you're in inpatient rehab, you can probably get a 2-meter handheld in there and maybe yak on the local repeater or something, talk to people, make some new friends that way. But something like that. Kurt Collins, W9KEC. Hey, Dave, do you have any experience with the IC756? I have seen it. I have operated one at Field Day many years ago. At one time, it was the top of the line, of the ICOM line, and had lots and lots of features. It's still considered to be an excellent radio. I think that the newer radios with the more software-defined features outdo it, but it's a fine radio. It is a super heterodyne, okay? They probably have in it some software features like some brick wall IF filters and things like that. I know my Tentec Jupiter, which is up there, I got in around the year 2000 sometime. And it has some amazing bandwidth filters. You just dial in the bandwidth. There's literally a knob for it. You can go down to 50 hertz. And if you are talking to a CW person and you get your tone to match that, your side tone to match that, you can just crank it right down to 50 hertz, and that's the only thing you'll hear. I mean, you go up 1 or 2 hertz above where the filter skirt is, and you don't hear anything at all. That's a brick wall filter. Most filters have got slopes like this. Some of them pretty bad. I've got one up here that's a CW transceiver that I don't think is in production anymore. And it has a filter, wide, narrow. And what that means is very wide and just wide. Okay, terrible analog filter. The digital stuff's really good at doing that. Okay, let's see, get this down here. Would love to hear your opinion. They're fine radios. VE3KVR Dave in Toronto, just a big thank you for your videos. I've learned a lot from them. Well, very good. I am delighted to hear that they are working for you. And I will tell you this about my YouTube videos. They are completely tariff-free. That's not the truth for everything I have. Let's see. Yeah, crazy. I'm supposed to get a package today from FedEx, and they said somebody's got to be here to sign for it. It hasn't come yet, and it's after 7, so I don't think it's going to make it. Okay. Mark French sound is fine now. Slide T-bone. Trombone, I would assume. Works. Neil Marsh, how close are you to Sheridan? Sheridan is in Wyoming, if I understand. There may be some little town in Colorado called Sheridan. I don't know. But I'm toward the bottom of the state. We're about 100 very wiggly miles from Durango, which is right there on the border with New Mexico. And we are, so I'm a whole state away from Sheridan. Here is an interesting 3 very D4 YW in 1NS. Adds $5 to the chat revenue. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate that. I've got a trip to Dayton coming up, and I'm got to get there. Hey Dave, what is an Augie? Okay, YouTube says, or they said at one point, you should have some sort of a name for your collection of fans. Like there's a YouTube channel I watch from time to time, a guy in Scotland who's a professional hoof trimmer for dairy cattle. And he does some very interesting videos. The one everybody wants to watch are the ones where there's something wrong with the foot, you know. That's the one people want to watch. Perfectly ordinary trim is like washing paint dry. So he's very good and very attuned at selecting these things. He has an extremely popular channel. He calls his collection of fans the herd, okay, which is nice. Now, my suffix or my call sign is OG. And so my logo for the YouTube channel, which you probably see on the page somewhere there, it would be right about, see if I can get my finger in the right place, there. Okay. It is, OG is the logo for my channel, so I call the fan group Augies. O-G-G-I-E-S, Augies. And I've also come to learn that it's the name of a Welsh pastry. Also, the OG terminology apparently stands for one of the TV shows. It was Original Gangster. So I'm actually just OG. Oscar Golf. Or if you're talking to a DX station, Ocean Germany. That's what they understand. I even heard a DX station say Hermany instead of Germany, because the G in a number of languages is pronounced as an H. So can't go by the spelling anymore. Okay, sound is fine now. So that's what it says. I haven't been able to figure that out when I watch your videos. Love your vids 73. I have been trying to mention that every so often, that OG, the Augies, when I say hello Augies worldwide, and they are worldwide. Something like 1/3 of my viewers are outside of the United States. It's almost all English-speaking countries. Canada, Australia, the UK, India. But I also have a number of viewers who are in Germany and Scandinavia. So, cool, great. That's why I say Augies worldwide. Okay, Neil Marsh. Whoops. Lop KE off Dave's call sign. That's where the OG comes from. Yes. You're an Augie by virtue of being here tonight. True. And welcome. Robert Morris. Hello, Dave. I'm W5WSS Bob. I think you are new tonight, and welcome to the weekly gathering of the Augies. I've been trying to look into maybe doing this on Zoom. If I do it on Zoom, then we can have actually more of a conversation rather than just text comments back. I'm curious what you guys think of that. I don't know how much I'd have to pay for that, because you get beyond a certain number of people on the call and they want a fee from you. So, okay, and he says, got it. It's what his fans are called. That's what I thought. Just wasn't sure if it was some obscure ham term. There certainly are. You know the term Elmer, which is a ham term for mentor. And it's been that way for many years. I see the league starting to change that to mentor instead of Elmer. But it is part of the real ham jargon and Elmer. Okay. Leo Gustafson, I was looking over an older QST magazine and saw an advertisement for an Yaesu FTDX 4000 or 5000 that was pushing 400 watts. Okay, the original FT400, I think it was a beast of a radio. It was all tube. It preceded the FT101. I have one up here. The FT400 or 4000, whatever it was, did put out, and I'm not output 400 watts. It was, like I said, a beast of a radio. It was big, and it was deep, and it was heavy, and you put it where you wanted it to go because you weren't moving it again. So that was quite a radio that never made a hit in the U.S. because all tubes. You could buy great American all-tube radios. The radio that really opened up the U.S. market to the Japanese was the one you see, the one in the middle there, right there. That one is a Yaesu FT101. And that went through several models. I have the B model. There was the original model, the B, C, D, E, F. They got up quite a ways. I got a Yaesu FT201 because I could not afford the 101. And all my friends were getting the Kenwood TS520s. And I wanted one but couldn't afford it. So I got the Yaesu. And the Yaesu radio was great. I loved it. It worked very, very well. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so that's really what it was. I don't think they sold very many. Now, there was a Yaesu FTDX 5000 and a 9000. And to be honest, let's look in the advertisement for usually ham radio outlet. Here we go. Ham radio outlet is one of the major mail order outfits, as is DX Engineering. There are a number of smaller ones like R&L Electronics and RF Parts and so on. Let's see, the FTDX 101D, I think, is their top level radio these days. Now the FTDX, the DX in the title, it talks about the front end and the extent they go through with the roofing filters and all of that sort of thing. So they're all great radios. Right now, I think they're top of the line. It used to be FT101, that radio, and that was the radio they made their name on. That was the radio that started the Japanese invasion of ham radio. And it turned out to be a perfect combination of capabilities, ergonomics, reliability, ease of repair, all of these kinds of things. You could actually just pull out a card and send the IF to Yaesu, and they'd fix it and send it back. And the problem was that the Americans ever caught napping? As usual, how many times has American industry been caught napping by a foreign commercial power? Anyway, in the U.S., there was the competition was the Swan, was a really nice all-transistor radio, and then I think they had a Swan that had the driver and two finals tubes, which this one does. The FT101 had just 3 tubes, the driver and the 2 finals, and everything else was transistor. And it still looks like ancient technology when you look in there. When I look inside my 101, my 7300, which I've done a couple times, I mean, it's just a sea of surface-mounted components. It's quite amazing. Okay, Ozempic is a drug that is a new drug for diabetes. And it is, as it has been in me, extremely effective. Now, I also take other drugs for the diabetes too. There's some standard drugs that they give you if you've got diabetes. I am not on insulin. I've got type 2 diabetes, which in older times I would have been on insulin, but I'm not. And I'm on Gemfibrozil for it, and the one that starts with an M, and then I'm on the Ozempic. Now, the way Ozempic is administered, it's in what they call a pen. It's a long tube. You take the cap off the tube, screw a needle on it. The needle's about like that. You know, after using an alcohol swab, just stick it in your belly and push down the button at the end, and it meters in the right amount. And you can get 4 weekly injections out of each pen. And so it puts it right in under the skin, just, you know, between the skin and the fat layer. And it eventually works out over the entire body. But the thing it affects is your digestive tract. It slows it down quite a bit. That way you can't eat all that food, and it's changed the nature of what tastes good to me. I mean, things I've enjoyed for a long time, I really don't enjoy anymore. Now, the problem is when you stop taking it, all those feelings go away, and if you haven't really readjusted your eating habits consciously, you can gain all that weight back in a heartbeat. Okay, Mounjaro. They're GLP-1 agonist, GLP-1. Okay, there's 5 best GLP brands. Oh, these are Glucagon-like peptide 1, hormone involved in regulating blood sugar levels and appetite. Okay, and see what they are. Okay, Ozempic, Wegovy, Victoza, Saxenda, Trulicity, and Byetta. That's what Google says. Okay, so Ozempic is one of them. Anyway, it's worked extremely well for me. My wife tried it. She's also diabetic. But it gave her some bad reactions with her stomach. Was just, she didn't like it. She didn't like it, so she stopped taking it. So I'm still doing it. Okay, let's see. Well, I think we skip a couple here. Okay, here's the slide trombone. Two antennas on a 20-foot mast, a 2-meter and a 6-meter. I see many that put the 2-meter on top. Any reason why? Why would I not put the 6-meter on top? There's no reason. In fact, the league sells an antenna that they've, see if it's, I just finally got through my May QST today. I'm one of the people who still gets a printed copy. Let's see if we can find it. ARRL's probably everywhere again. Let's go to the, we'll go to the screen, and we will go to arrl.org, and we'll look at the store, and they have antennas, 14 kits too. There's 2 kits, and they're both antennas. Okay, this is the end-fed half-wave antenna, and then this right here is a 10-meter Moxon, all right, 28 megahertz, and a 6-meter Yagi in one innovative design. It's lightweight, mast-mountable, and they show it tower-mounted here, and it includes extra hardware for fixed and portable use, includes ground shipping. Okay, produced by Momo Beam. All right, so this is your 6 and your 10 meter, which technicians can use. And then if you want, you can stick up on the top of it a 2-meter antenna, like a vertical. Okay, now note that this is a horizontal antenna, horizontally polarized antenna. If you're going to operate on FM on 6 and 2, you would go with vertical polarization. So this is here so that you can do modes other than FM, such as single sideband and Morse code and things like that, is all done with horizontal polarization. Could you put the 6-meter on top? Yes, but you've got a problem. The 2-meter antenna, which would be vertically polarized for almost all FM work, is vertically polarized. And if you put that under the 6-meter antenna, then you've got the antenna right next to the mast. You want to get something to take it away from the mast by about 6 or 8 feet. Okay? It's just easier to put it on top. Just easier. Okay, let's see. Jose Valdez, just saying hi. Hello, Jose. The Radio Surfer, thank you so much for all your help, Dave. You've helped me countless times at this point. Well, you're welcome. Lawrence Paraday, hey, Dave, I recently passed my extra. Good for you. If I want to thank you for your advice of joining the ARRL to get your videos. Yeah, because you get the magazines too. And the way they do it now, fairly early in the month, around the 8th or the 10th, they send out a link to all the ARRL members. and it's the link to the magazines. And you can look at any of the 4 magazines. They are on the air, okay, for technicians, QST for everybody. Then they have QEX for experimenters, and then they have the contest journal for people who are major into contests. Okay, and you can look at any of them. Now, for a fee, another $25 or so a year, you can get one of those magazines mailed to you. I decided to do that. I may not renew that this year because, unlike this month, normally I've already read all of QST before this comes out. By the way, in looking at the May issue of Ask Dave, there is an egregious error in here. Has to do with the gamma match. If you spot the error, let me know. I'm going to be sending a note into QST so they can fix it in the digital edition. Okay, but congratulations, Lawrence, on passing the extra, and I am glad that you're really pumped about amateur radio. Robert Morris, Monjaro. Let's see which one it is. Monjaro. It's Monjaro, M-O-N-J-A-R-O. It is terzepatide, and it is very similar to Ozempic. Several companies came out with it at about the same time. And, you know, this, whatever they call it, there's some technical name for it. Okay, Monjaro, let's see. Well done, Lawrence. Congratulations from Leo. Paul C., VK4DPC from Down Under. Greetings from Brisbane, Australia. We've really missed you in your live chats. I'm trying, getting a little better. It says, I hope I'm well. I'm actually doing pretty good. Been having trouble with nosebleeds, of all things. The other day I got up in the morning and just went like that to my nose. I started a nosebleed. Driving me nuts. And another problem you get when you get old, there's not enough, I don't know what, heat, whatever, in a finger to always make the phone work. It just ignores the taps. And it's frustrating. So I have right here by the radio, because the icon's the same way, I have this little device which has got the little rubber ball on the end of it, and you can just touch it like that and reliably get what you're looking for. Okay. Life and Death 200, typo 100. No. I'll give you a hint. It has to do with the gamma match and the antenna. Was the IC756 the one with display failures, vertical stripes? I never heard of that being a problem with the 756. Never have. Kurt Collins, W9KEC. I almost bought a Jupiter. Yeah, and Jupiter's American made, of course. All the parts come from China because that's where all the parts come from. I have a Corsair 2 that was gifted to me, and I've been using that for the last 2 weeks, mostly on 20 hunting POTA. But this was too good of a deal for me to pass up. The Corsairs were great radios. Now, the problem was that the Yaesu FT101 had so many features on it and so many really cool things that the Americans could give you the basic radio. They could compete on that, but they couldn't compete on features. because of the cost difference. This was back when Japan's economy was booming. I mean, between Nikon and Canon, it had destroyed the American camera market. All kinds of things happened. Do you know that Kodak still makes digital sensors? They made some of the very earliest digital sensors for, I'll just say, industrial use, shall I? But they still make them. And anyway, that rig had so many features, was so ergonomic, easy to use, and a lot of people like Hallicrafters never made the transition to a single transceiver. It was still separates, receiver and a transmitter. Now, you could attach cabling between them so that they would transceive, meaning using the VFO from only one of them or the other of them, because they both had VFOs. Collins never came out with one except for the KWM-1, which had a lot of tubes, and the KWM-2, which again was a tube radio, but it was a successful transceiver. It was designed for mobile work, if you can take something that big and make it mobile, and a number of people did. You had to have a power supply that basically was a dynamotor that took the 12 volts from the engine, spun up a motor which ran a generator that gave the high voltages that you needed for the tube voltages. But the KWM is still a sought-after piece of Collins gear. It is a true transceiver, meaning one VFO that is used, one VFO and one IF string that is used for both transmit and receive. Okay? And now the actual transmitter and the receiver front end were separate. The audio was pretty much the same. You had to switch it so that it would become the modulator when you're transmitting, and then back to audio amplification, detection of the IF, and then audio amplification for your earphones or your speaker or whatever. Okay, so KWM2s are still sought after. And they're not cheap either. No Collins equipment is cheap. The Ten-Tec, the difference between the Ten-Tec and the Yaesu in terms of features is enormous. I mean, the Ten-Tec, its noise reduction was not as good as the little Timewave 599++ that I had, that was strictly an audio filter, but man, what a beautiful job it did cleaning up signals. So anyway, a lot has changed. And this is where the Japanese came in. The Americans could give you the same basic radio, and Ten-Tec did for a long, long time. And then the problem was that the Japanese kept adding features that the Americans couldn't compete with on price. So Hallicrafters went away. Collins was purchased by Rockwell, became Rockwell Collins. Collins still exists, but it makes avionics, largely for the military. Okay, they're not in the ham radio market anymore. In fact, interestingly, these old Yaesus used TV sweep tubes for the finals. It was a bad match, but it worked very well. You could get a lot of power out of them. And if you treated them very, very, very carefully, they would last forever. This one still has the original S6J 6s in it, the old sweep tubes. Now, the reason they did that is because sweep tubes were like super common, because every drugstore that sold tubes and had a tube tester could sell you these tubes. Well, then they went to transistorized TVs, and so much for the sweep tubes. So now they're hard to find. So Kenwood, when it made its 520, put in an actual transmitting tube that was designed for radio transmitting. It was a little more expensive. Nowadays, those tubes are far less expensive than the 6SJ7s, or 6s, whatever it is. And so that, I mean, was an issue for them. However, a lot of tube amplifiers use the IMAC tubes, E-I-M-A-C. It's a Portman, no, is that the right word for it? Of two people's names. They were by hams, and they made transmitting tubes for hams on up. They make the gigantic tubes used by the 50,000 watt and 100,000 watt broadcast stations. And recently, like within the last few years, they have exited the amateur market. It just isn't big enough to justify keeping the tooling for them functional. Okay, tubes are very complex devices, and it takes a lot of manufacturing expertise to make them. Today, if you're going to buy a tube, it's either from Bulgaria, I think Lithuania, or I think Raytheon's starting to manufacture a few tubes for guitar amps. All the little bands think they've got to have tube amplifiers for their guitar amps. And for definite reason. I mean, tube amps sound different from transistor amplifiers. The transistor, now here's the thing, okay? Your old tube radios, if you turned it up, you'd start getting distortion, okay? It was called harmonic distortion. And they would rate amplifiers based on the amount of total harmonic distortion. And anything under 10% was considered pretty good. Well, it turns out that it was that harmonic distortion that gave the sound its depth. I remember the very first time I saw a complete transistorized setup to play CDs. Remember CDs? And I said, after hearing it, I'm going, it's flat as a pancake. What do you mean it's flat? It's good for costing a fortune, but it didn't sound that good. It was flat. The sound was very flat. Why was the sound flat? Because there was no harmonic distortion. They had the harmonic distortion not at 3%, but 0.003%. Okay, well, a whole 2 or 3 generations of Americans had grown up listening to tube amps, and they thought that's what music should sound like, or voice, or whatever. And then you introduce this electronics, and you take you can make a transistor amplifier with no noticeable distortion. But the problem is, we want it. Our ears want the distortion. And so, for those of you my age, my generation, yeah, okay, we still like that. The younger generation, they're going back to tubes for their guitar amplifiers. They want that in there. Now, I know there are distortion pedals that do all kinds of specific distortions, but the sound itself has depth. Now, there's another thing called crossover distortion. When you go Class B amplifier, Class B linear amplifier, you amplify the top with one tube and you amplify the bottom of the wave with the other tube. That's Class B. You can combine it where they kind of overlap a little bit. But the thing is, as it gets down to 0, there's a little nonlinearity. And then you pick up that nonlinearity on the other side, and it creates this crossover distortion. And it's really hard to emulate with transistors. It can be done. I mean, you literally could take that sound, that beautiful, mellow surrounding sound, and build something digital that would make it sound exactly like that. But do people do that? No, they want the tubes. Why? Tubes glow in the dark. In my computer down here, my big computer, there's a bunch of LEDs that outline the audio path. It's for gaming and stuff. And I look down in the computer through the holes in the top, and I can see that glowing, and it's exactly the same color that a tube filament glows. And it's quite comforting to think that my computer would have tubes in it. Anyway, that's a lot of stuff on history. But in any event, of course, on single sideband, I got to tell you something. When I first got the FT101B, which I got at an estate sale, I listened to it. And I was just blown away. I says, this is what HF is supposed to sound like. It's supposed to sound like this. And I went back to my transistor radio and going, well, I mean, that's HF. I can pick out the signals. But boy, I sure love listening to that thing better. Now, it is transistor, right? Okay. All analog. And this was at the time when people who didn't know how to design transistor circuits designed them to be the current equivalent of the voltage version of the tube circuit. Tubes are voltage driven, transistors are current driven. But you can come up with very similar design techniques that go through that. So that's pretty good. Okay. Let's see. Rick Bamsberger says, hi Dave, Leo Gustafson. We laughed at tariff-free. Yes, all my videos are tariff-free. And, because what you pay for them is zero. And you could put 100% tariff on that, it'd still be zero. So, Chris G7VEO, evening Dave and Augies from across the pond. It was 84 degrees today in London. It's a little bit humid over there too. Sunny, hottest day at start of May ever recorded. Yeah, I keep hearing that from the weather people. This is the hottest Tuesday the 15th ever recorded. We've been recording temperatures on Earth for 200 years? So now let's see, it's 01:49 in London, so it's almost 2 in the morning over there. So thank you for joining, Chris. Kurt Collins, W9KEC, love the Zoom idea. Leo Gustafson, Paul and Storm do a funny bit called Me Like Fire, a caveman's whose name is OG. Oh, really? Oh, golly. Sounds like an R390, huge and heavy. The R390s are huge and heavy. Now, the R390, you'll notice that one thing it doesn't have on it, that all ham radios have, is a great big tuning knob. All the military radios and commercial radios don't have tuning knobs. Use little thumb wheels or something to set in the frequency, or you tune this knob for the megahertz and this knob for the kilohertz and so on. And the R390s were built to be intercept receivers. And they were very successful. The R390 is probably the greatest narrowband receiver ever conceived. And they were designed for a lights out environment, which is why the meters on either side had the radium painted dials so you could go in and read it in the dark. Well, when the various people who did intercepting sold all those radios by the pallet full, they took all the meters out. So any R390 you see today has got new meters in there. They're replacement meters anyway. Anyway, that radio was almost bulletproof. I mean, it had an incredible, the front 2 or 3 inches behind the front panel is a whole bunch of gears. I mean, a bunch of gears. And the way they tune the thing is permeability tuned. They raise and lower ferrite rods in the inductors. And the tubes are set up so this one goes up as this one goes down and so on. It's an incredible thing to see. If you've never looked inside an R390, I'm going to have to find one and do a video on those gears. But anyway, why did we get rid of them if they were so good? Why didn't we transistorize them? Why not? I'll tell you why not. Software-defined radio. Why listen to a 3 kilohertz wide signal in real time when you can record the entire HF spectrum and break out to people who want to hear things real time? And then if you miss something, just hit rewind and hear it again anywhere in the HF spectrum. So they went from these narrow band 3 kilohertz signals to 30 megahertz wide. And you can record that. At first they do it on tape. Tape about that wide, thick, very thick tape. Not thick this way, but thick this way. You could record all of that. And then, of course, they went to electronic recording. A 30, let's see, you have to go, the Nyquist limit would be 60 megabits per second. Now, 20 years ago, that would sound like a lot. Today, it's like my Starlink link will do that. Okay, so it's not an issue anymore. They record everything. And then they pull out what they need and stuff like that. If they miss something, they can go back. And it's just amazing. That's why all the 390s ended up on ballots, is because they were putting in this new stuff by, not Collins, Raycal is the British firm that makes them. There's a firm down in Florida that makes a lot of government radios. And they make the radios that are the fundamental radios at the league station W1AW. And the reason for that is because W1AW essentially transmits its code practice and stuff 24/7. And these radios have the reliability that you need. The radios that we have, as good as they are prosumer at best in terms of reliability, so on and so forth. Okay, they're not, super great, but then again, you pay a bloody fortune. You can pay 14, 15, 20K just for the receiver on one of these military things. There was a place in Florida that used to make them. I used to work with them when I was with IBM. Okay, let's see. Lou Gustafson, Paul and Storm do a funny bit called Me Like Fire. Oh, and a caveman who's OG. Sounds like an R390. They were huge and heavy and bulletproof and complicated. And you were told, if you had a 390, don't you ever even dream of opening the VFO. It's in a cylinder. It's actually slightly twisted as you tune. Don't even dream of opening it, because there's no way, no matter how good you are as an experimenter, of putting that thing back together successfully. They have to be factory realigned. And of course, they were accurate to within a couple hundred hertz at most. Okay. Whereas my old, the FT101 is accurate to within about a kilohertz. Of course, my ICOM, I've got it set up to be accurate to about 1 hertz. in there. Okay. RF Phil puts $5 in the chat revenue. Thank you. I really do appreciate it. Anybody who can help support the channel financially. Planning a 75-meter full wavelength loop. Okay, if I can only get it up 15 to 20 feet, if it goes over my house, or if my 30-meter vertical is inside the loop. It's from KE0OG in DM69. That's the grid square. The answer is it will work fine, and I've done that. I put in a 75-meter, well, actually 80-meter full wavelength loop, and you're going to probably either want to put a balun, like a 4-to-1 balun, at one corner and then feed it with coax, and get good heavy coax because you're going to get losses in there. Or you can take the ladder line all the way down into the back of the antenna tuner, which I did, but that created a lot of RF in the shack. So I moved the 4-to-1 balun out. It had one in the antenna tuner, and I moved it up where the antenna was. The antenna worked great. You could tune it on any band, except 160. I tried tuning 160, it just didn't work. But 80, I don't know if I tried 60, but 40 all the way up to 10. And of course, if you look at the radiation pattern of such a low dipole, of course it's going to go straight up on 40 and 80, but that's good for NVIS. And then it will start to go out on the higher bands, but it's not a uniform pattern. It is just really weird nulls and pointy parts and everything like that. Now, my vertical at the time was a butternut HF9V, and one summer, I worked really slowly on this, I completely rebuilt the HF9V. I got a new capacitor for it because one had broken. I had to do all kinds of things, and it was a stinker to tune. My wife and I finally got on our cell phones. She was in here looking at the SWR meter, flipping back and forth between 40 and 30, while I would move the 30 where it hits the 40-meter coil and move it a 1/4 inch, and we'd see what happened. It was a stinker to tune 30 meters, but it worked, and it worked better than the loop. So I took the loop down, cut it up, and made radials with it for the HF9V. A lot of those radials are still out there. It's now a step IR, big IR vertical out there, which is my reference antenna. It's the antenna to which I compare everything. And I can do that now because I've got the little SDR Play Duo SDR radio receiver, SDR receiver. I can receive 2 entirely different bands or antennas at the same time. And I very, very, very carefully went through all the parameters of the 2 receivers on SDR Connect, which is their new software, and made them identical so that I could look at the reference and I could look at the other. The problem with trying to get your eyes back and forth is by the time you get your eyes up here, the signal's changed. Okay, so I could take screenshots and get both at identically the same time and compare antennas that way. And I have done that. I did that even with my hex beam. I don't think the video's out on that yet. We fixed the hex beam. That was a chore. We had to use a gin pole to take it down. Had to take the antenna off the mast and put it on a temporary post stuck in the ground so that we could get in and repair the wires. The MFJ held the wire in place with a little plastic clip that screwed into the fiberglass arm. And so the wire went through the plastic. Well, you know what UV at 7,000 feet is going to do to that. they were all broken and cracking and all that kind of stuff. So we had to fix all of that. And now it's broken again, I see out there. I don't know what's broken. I'll have to run the tests on each one. So, yes, your 30-meter vertical can go inside the loop. I think your loop will work on 30 meters as well as the vertical. Do a cross compare with a thing where you can switch A to B and see which one you like more. Okay, but planning the 75 full wavelength loop or an 80-meter full wavelength loop, I'd go with the 80, by the way, because then that's a little bit more correct harmonic for the other bands. The length on that thing is not terribly critical. You can go a foot or 2 or 3 extra or less or whatever and get it right. Okay, and RP says I would use this for sideband rig DX10, FTDX10, no amp. That's 100 watts. You'll do fine with that. Okay. Chris G7VEO, are you going to make the FTDX10 your reference rig instead of the 7300? If I did, it would be the FT740. Okay. Rather than the more expensive mid-range FTDX10. They're both fine radios. But I'm torn. One of the problems is that when I do a demo in HF, I use the reference station radio. But I am willing to say there are hundreds of hams out there, maybe more, who have the 7300 because it's listed in my reference station. How much of a kickback do you think I get from my con? Zero. But a lot of people have bought that radio to get that. Now, this radio's in about its 10th year. Okay, the 70, FT70, let me make sure we'll go over to the screen and we'll go to the let's see, Yaesu FT 710. Okay, 710. My apologies. 710. It's the 710. And it has this weird speaker thingy over here that gives you some depth to the listening. That doesn't work on headphones. Now, you can take anything that happens in an acoustic box and you can compare that to what is happening in terms of capacitance, inductance, da-da-da-da-da. You can come up with the complete reactance of that box at every point in it. And you can emulate that. You can emulate that in digital circuitry. But it's cooler if it's a separate box. Okay, metformin, thank you. Yes, that is the go-to drug for diabetes. Metformin is the first out of the box. And it actually does work pretty well. I take metformin, Gemfibrozil, and the, I've already forgotten again. Look at the FTDX10 as well. Okay. Eric Sund, N0EZX. Hi, Dave. Getting a light rain with 56 degrees in Hastings, Minnesota. Thanks for the great info. Stay safe from those tornadoes that are running around. Leo Gustafson, $25. I'm going to sign up. Now, you need to be an ARRL member to get QST, because QST is the official organ of the ARRL. And so once you are a member, and it takes, what, $60, something like that. I got a picture once. I put more than that, dollar-wise, into my Jeep one time. So I took a picture of that to say, ARRL membership, is it worth filling up your car once? Of course it is. So anyway, Chuck. Hi, Dave and all doggies. I apologize if I already answered this, but how long did it take you to lose all that weight? It's been a few months. It's been a few months. I think I started maybe 6 months ago. No, probably more than that, 7 or 8 months ago. So, yeah. K1TOO, hi Dave, a perimeter ground system for commercial stations seems to be 4 wire, that's a huge wire, or larger for lightning protection. Why is only 6 AWG good enough for a ham station perimeter grounding? That's the difference between a commercial and residential. Okay, why do we not have 3-phase power in our homes? I mean, after all, our refrigerators and our washers and dryers would be more efficient with 3-phase motors, but you don't do 3-phase in residential. So that's the difference. Now, if you look at the Motorola book, R56, is that right? It's readily available online. They show how to properly ground a mountaintop radio repeater station. It's in a metallic box. It's very firmly anchored in concrete and all this. They have a perimeter ground with lots of ground rods on the thing. And the lightning arresters on top all go to that. And then inside the station, they have one big bus bar, solid copper, probably half-inch thick copper, with all these holes drilled in it. Every rack is attached to that. And then every item in every rack comes to a common point for the rack, which then goes to the ground, which then goes out to that perimeter ground. Okay, it's a very thorough way of doing things. Now, I've been talking to a guy named Bruce who is major into grounding. He helped write that Motorola book, and I've been sort of trading messages with him, just trying to understand a few things better. And one of the things I don't understand yet is what to do with the green wire ground in your ham station. Some stuff I've read say you need to connect that to your single point ground in your station, because that way the electrical equipment and your radio equipment is at the same potential if you're zapped by lightning strike. Whereas if the only point the two meet is out at the utility box where the green wire ground touches real ground, there could be a 1,000-volt differential between the two in the event of a lightning strike. So the thing about the R56 book, this is for an enclosure that we know will need to operate, even though it will be repeatedly hit by lightning. Repeatedly. They're on top of a mountain in a metal box with antennas. They're going to get hit by lightning repeatedly. You know, multiple bolts in a single storm. I mean, so that's why they do that sort of thing. Now, if you're a commercial installation, you're bigger, and so your wire runs are longer. So you want to take a look at the resistance per foot times the number of feet, which could be hundreds. Like if you're doing a big warehouse or something like that, you're hundreds of feet around. So 4/0 wire might be a better thing to do for that. I use number 2 wire to attach my inside station ground to the outside panel where all the lightning arresters, and then I use number 2 strand of wire to go down to the ground rod, and then that is bonded to my old ground rod and also to the utility ground rod. And you know, I'm discovering now, after only 50 years as a ham, that that may not be adequate. So I'm trying to learn more. Okay, and that was Doug K1TOO. Leo says, nowadays the Japanese economy is in the dumps, yes. And I've taken advantage of the exchange for my mic and other. Oh, yeah, absolutely. The Japanese have got some serious, I mean, truly serious demographic issues. The U.S. is beginning to face this. Other countries like Estonia have already lost a quarter of their population because the population is aging out. To put it very bluntly, nobody in Japan's having babies. Because not only the husband, but the wife also wants to work. And with the very homogenized culture in Japan, what one person does, everybody does, you know. Nobody's having babies. And they're going to have over 50% of their population over the age of 65 very soon. And then the country will start to shrink. The number of people in the country will start to shrink. And that's, do you remember during the Syrian conflict when the German prime minister, was that gal, name, of course, I've forgotten again. She says, oh, we're going to take 1 million Syrians. What? 1 million? Why? Well, the answer is very simple. Germany, like all other European countries, is aging quickly. And there won't be enough of a workforce to support the old people unless they do something drastic. And that drastic thing that they did was went and grabbed 1 million Syrians and say, hey, come over here, work, we got work for you. And yeah, sure, you still hear about some migrant camps and things like that, but there aren't any 1 million people in migrant camp. Most of those people have integrated into German society by now. And they pay taxes, and they work. They'll take any job. And this is why I know there's a lot of politics. I'm just going to kind of slip under the politics and say this is why Biden let in so many immigrants, is because the U.S. is facing the same problem. Do you remember 4 or 5 years ago when every business had signs up that said, help wanted? You've noticed those aren't there anymore? Guess why? They got their workers. Now, mind you, was there pushback to what Angela Merkel did? Oh, of course, you bet. Do you still have major political parties in Germany that would like to get rid of those immigrants? Oh, absolutely, you bet. Okay, but there's what people talk about and what they really do. Okay, one of the things that we see on the news is companies are frightened, farmers especially are frightened that their workforce is going to be deported. They say, well, Americans should take those jobs. How would you like to go stand in a hot field all day with a hoe pulling up weeds? Do you want that job? Nobody does. Why do the immigrants take it? Because they're not doing this for themselves. They're doing it for their children. Just like our immigrants. My maternal grandfather was a German. He was in the Austrian army in 1908 or 9. I found him on one of the registers, and the date we had for it was wrong. The register was correct. He entered this country. He was AWOL from the Austrian army. He's, to this day, AWOL from the Austrian army. He ended up in San Francisco working as an upholsterer. And he met a divorced woman who had one child. And together they managed to get into a farm in Modesto, where he spent essentially the rest of his life. And they had a modest existence all their life, which was, okay. But Ferdinand's son, Warren, went off to become a full colonel in the Air Force, or not Air Force, Army, as a veterinarian, and ended up head of the Department of Pharmacology at Pacific University. His son, Fred, technically Ferdinand, but Fred also, opened up a machine shop in San Francisco and worked that successfully until his retirement. And my mother, of course, married a vet who came back from the Pacific Theater, and he went on to become a school teacher, my father. Okay, so it's not for the immigrants, it's for the immigrants' children that they're doing this. And they're willing to do that. They're willing to do back-breaking work so that their family doesn't have to. Do you know why it's getting harder and harder to find a Chinese restaurant these days? It's because all the people who started these Chinese restaurants were immigrants. They were immigrants. And they've now aged out of their restaurant, and the kids don't want it. The kids are engineers and lawyers and stuff like that. So they just close the restaurant if nobody wants to buy it. I mean, you got to look at these macro trends in what's going on here. And the Republicans and the Democrats take very different routes, but they're kind of working on the same end, okay? So, perimeter ground systems, let's see, Japanese economy is in the dumps. Like I said, the Japanese have got a serious demographic problem. And the Japanese can't stand the thought of immigrants. Because if they would take immigrants from China, whatever, they could revitalize their economy. But their culture is so homogenized and so universal and so strongly held that they won't take immigrants to this day. And they're going to pay the price. Okay, let's see. Kurt Collins, W9KEC, give me that fuzzy tube amp sound every day of the week. Yep. Tim Hassel, let's not get into politics of what to do with these people. Remember, every one of us who's listening at this point is the child or a descendant of an immigrant. All of us. I'm third generation. On the Casler side, it goes all the way back to 1700s, okay? But on the Schneider side, it just goes back. My maternal grandfather and maternal grandmother immigrated from German areas in Eastern Europe. So let's see, I saw a YouTube video about Akihabara in Japan, where I saw stacks and stacks of new old stock radio tubes. I had the opportunity to visit Akihabara in 1973, and I doubt it's changed much. This is where the electronic stuff is focused. It's a very cool place. If you can get there, go there. It'd be like being in a candy store. Okay, in one of the radio shops, yeah. I used to warm up frozen Twinkies on Dad Carr's Dephone CB. Yeah, they were all tubes. Phil, there is nothing quite like listening to a tube radio warm up, come to life, and smell that unique smell of the tubes becoming hot. You know what you were smelling? Roasting dust. That was the smell. They'd get dust on them, they would roast the dust for you, and that is what you smelled. Okay, yes, it is magical. Glenn Martin, hello from Far West Missouri area, N0QFT. Larry Fields, good morning from 83 degrees Fahrenheit in Manila in the Philippines. Not much here. Told my wife and family about solar power. We got a few groups doing it, so we'll see. Harris. Yes, Harris. Harris. Harris was the company in Florida. I was a subcontract program manager at IBM that was going to create some radio equipment. It was kind of weird equipment. It was 7 gigahertz down and 20 gigahertz up. That was a real problem because of the frequencies were so far apart. One was Milstar, the other was something else. That, well, it was a radio receiver for the DSP satellites. And I was the program manager for that, and we had a competition between Harris and Raytheon. And it was the difference between Harris had some great ideas on how to do it, and Raytheon says, okay, this is what we've done in the past, so this will work on them here, and we'll use this here, and we'll use this here. Raytheon got the job. Okay, although Harris did other work for us. Thank you for that. I was thinking Harris makes military and militarized radio equipment, and Harris makes the main radios that do all the code transmitting and everything at the league because of the extremely high reliability, and also it's an American company, so if they need servicing the same day, whatever, I mean, it just really helps. Whereas if you're going with a now they're normal stations for people to come in and operate. Yeah, those have got Japanese radios, but because Harris, like I said, there's no big knob on the Harris, so it's all, the frequencies have to be set up in advance. Let's see, LTV, Ling Temco Voigt. I think we went and listened to a presentation from them. It was out in the San Fernando Valley, and we were at the time out in, not Canoga Park, way further west, Westlake Village. We were in Westlake Village. Trump 2028, he's limited to 2 terms, so although it's interesting to note in history, when people started talking about Ronald Reagan wanting a 3rd term, he knew he was term limited to 2, and it's a good thing he did leave because he got dementia right at the end of his term. But he was not opposed to the Constitution being changed so he could run for 3rd term. But that would have been a disaster because, like I said, he was entering some stages of dementia where he couldn't really function. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Okay. Neil Mars, 72 of us watching, but only 1 like. Click that like button, folks. Yes, please. Please do that. Larry Fields trying to figure out how many panels I would need to run my gear. I did that. I made that calculation. In this issue of QST, I wrote an article about my solar-powered ham station. It says, power your station from the sun. Okay? I even got the Article of the Month award for that. This was also translated here into the Greek version of the QST, of their national associations. And you see this panel right there? It's a 33 watt Arco panel, which I still have, by the way. But this goes through and does all the calculations. And I figured out with a good battery, I could run that thing station 24 hours a day. And the reason that I could do that was because most of the time you're in receive. which draws about what, 1 amp? The newer radio's 2 amps. Okay. Right now I run my station on a 250 watt panel, single 250 watt panel, which is gross overkill for my station. But I have the charge controller right there, the modern one, maximum power point tracking, works with lithium ion batteries. Got a 100 amp hour lithium ion battery under here. Just started my year-long test of that. And everything that runs on 12 volts, including that light for the live stream, runs on that battery. Okay, we are running out of, well, we're out of time. Does anyone figure out how many panels I would need? Joel Dowling, does anybody Faraday cage their ham shack? You don't need to. See my presentation on that. It's in one of the videos. Let's see if we can find it. Let's go to studio. Just this one here. Okay. And I want to do EMP. Okay. It's this video number 988. Take a look at that in detail and you will find out that the threat for hams is not non-existent. It is a threat. This right here is a high altitude EMP lightning arrestor designed specifically for ham radio. They're a couple $100, $300, okay? I got this one directly from the company. The problem with EMP is the rise time is like 5 nanoseconds, picoseconds. Response time, okay, less than 1 nanosecond. And so what you need, the normal gas discharge tube lightning arresters, the gas discharge tube can't discharge fast enough. It's good for lightning, but it's not good for EMP if you really believe that's a threat. With what's going on these days, who knows? Okay, but this thing will respond and short the input. Of course, this part connects to your ground rod, okay? And I've got UHF connectors on either end right here. The idea is you've got to short your antenna leads within a nanosecond so that the pulse, whatever's picked up by your antenna, the pulse goes to ground rather than into your radio, okay? It's like lightning except about 1,000 times faster, okay? These are made. You can get them. They do work. I don't know if these are it says it's got a UL number on here, 1449. It says specification met. Specification met can be very different from UL listed. Okay, so these are available from a company called EMP Shield. Okay, you can look them up and you can find these. They have shields for everything. They'll take care of your car. They'll take care of your house. The idea is you've got to short across faster than a few nanoseconds, 2 or 3 nanoseconds. And if you can do that, you've got the problem solved. The EMP pulse as well, okay, you see that door there? And that door there, the distance between them is about how wide the pulse is as it goes outward. So it lasts for an extremely short period of time. I figured out how much power was in that pulse, and it was in the microwatts. That's why this thing's so small, it's potted, so can't get inside it, but the power can be dissipated very easily. So the thing you want to do is to keep that out of your antenna terminal or ground terminal or whatever terminal, microphone terminal. The box the 7300 is in, where I have my hand right now. That box, you see it's a clamshell. It's steel. It's grounded. That is a good Faraday shield for that box. And EMP won't go directly into the box. But it's very interesting. I gave a presentation to Pacificon. I gave the presentation to some of the Boulder Hamfest. I gave a presentation at the Duke City Hamfest in Albuquerque. And there was the ARRL first vice president, Kristen, who works for Apple, who does all their RF stuff. And she eats Maxwell's equations for breakfast. And she was sitting right there, and she had nothing bad to say about my presentation. So, very good. Okay, we're going to have to wrap up here before everybody. Yeah, roasting dust. Okay. Can you explain DMR to me like I'm a 3-year-old? How do I find talk groups, and what is the advantage and disadvantage? Okay, there are 3 main competing systems. There's D-Star, Kenwood, and ICOM. That D-Star was put together by the Japan Amateur Radio League. Okay. There's System Fusion, which is Yaesu, and it is both analog and digital. And there is DMR. And the reason that the Chinese do not do, either the Japanese is because Chinese don't do what Japanese do. There's a lot of history there. And not just the 20th century. There's many centuries of history there. They hate each other. Okay? Of course, they trade with each other, but I guess you can do that without liking them. Anyway, the Chinese do DMR because none of the Japanese are doing that, except Alinco. But Alinco is an also-ran in the ham radio world. So DMR, they're all alike. They do the same thing. It's digital voice. Personally, I don't really like how DMR voices sound, but I get all this equipment from the Chinese manufacturers, so I get DMR. There is a DMR repeater up in Grand Junction. I've got a 10-element 70-centimeter beam pointed at Grand Junction so I can actually talk to test these radios. And a talk group is the same as a room, or what you might call a party line. And you can get into it either through a repeater that does DMR, or you can get into it through a hotspot. Okay. And you can get all 3 of them. You can get in through the hotspots. The hotspots all work for all 3. Why don't they merge? History, politics, the phase of the moon, the angle of the sun, what house the Mercury is in, they don't, and they won't. They won't. There will be 3 systems forever. Now, you will find areas that like the Yaesu. You'll see a lot of system fusion. Find areas that like the DMR and areas that like the D-Star. Okay? So they all do the same thing. Now, there is one slight disadvantage to, there's one slight advantage to DMR. And it is built so that 2 radios can use the same repeater at the same time. They use time division multiplexing to do that. But you can be talking to the repeater at the same time somebody else is using the repeater. That's one good thing about DMR. Now, DMR was originally built for public service work. And if you look at your police radios, all that like that, have DMR or a close cousin running in them. Okay, so that's where it came from. So there's a lot of features in DMR, like remote kill and stuff like that, that are not used in ham radio. So you have to wipe out all that stuff that's not used. Of course, the other two are designed for ham radio, so it's a little easier that way. Which one should you get? Find out from your local club. Look at the repeater list. See whether they're D-Star or System Fusion or DMR. You get in the big metro areas and they'll be all three. So now, how can you communicate across protocols? There are room/talk group/whatever that are connected together, and you can get into them via any of these three, and then everybody hears what's coming out. So it's sort of like a talk group that crosses with the others. Okay, so there's my explanation of DMR, kind of like firing up the central heat for the first time right before the winter. Yeah, seen many in Asia where a young mom working in the field with a baby on their back. Oh yeah. Now in those societies, China is, you know, they fought for so many years the one-child policy, but they've abandoned that now, and they want their people to have babies because they're looking square in the face at that big demographic bump moving up the age scale. And they're going, we're screwed. So they're doing the same thing. Now go over to India. They don't have that problem because everybody there has babies. They have big families. That's what they do. Okay. Dave, were you able to finish your cobweb? I finished the hex beam. I finished the hex beam, and it's up and working. My cobweb got destroyed by a deer who ran through it in the middle of the night. My brother did check on our family history. Turns out we are related to Zachary Taylor. Very good. And a major component of that dust is dead human skin cells. Oh, boy, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I pounded that like, yes. 73 Dave and everyone, K4TA. Let's see, we're down to KD5EF for Adam. Dad worked OES and met President Reagan as governor. There you go. Glenn, well, yeah, I was in California at the time when Reagan was governor, Governor Reagan. In fact, for a long time after he was president, I kept calling him Governor Reagan. So I voted for him, by the way. Can you imagine that? Twice. Okay, not the same election. 2 subsequent elections, I voted for him both times. Caught a lot of flack from my friends, but I still think he did the better job. Okay, great job. 73, everyone is saying 73, so I will do the same. If all goes well, I will see you here next week. If I go to Dayton, I'm probably going alone because Loretta can't go because of her back. She can't sit that long. And I had a 21-year-old brand new technician who was interested in going with me, but he can't. He can't get out of work for that long. So I don't have, I wanted somebody to come with me to handle the driving, a lot of the driving. And the other thing to handle is I do still fall. I'm much better. I took, what do you call it, training, therapy for falling, and I'm much better now. But it's not a 0 chance. So I need somebody who can help me in that regard. Okay, so we will see everybody next time. And until we next meet, 73.